Alright everyone, it's a new day, it's a new dawn, and it's a new Curse of the Narcissist video. Last week, in part 3 of the series, I talked about a book called The Custom of the Country, and how the anti-heroine Unine Sprog was basically a late 19th, early 20th century version of Meghan Markle. And I'm not the only one. 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago now, in January of 2021, the New York Times thought so too. Now, while today's video is not going to be about Unine, because we've done that, there is one more thing that didn't exactly fit into last week's topic in part 3, but I really want to talk about because it's relevant to today's topic. If you've read the book or tuned in to last week's video, you might remember that Unine is a character that is full to the brim with ambition, much like Meghan Markle loves to remind us any chance she gets. But Unine is utterly devoid of substance, of humanity. She's just a pretty bauble, a husk of a person with an uncanny ability to blend in with her target audience, but with no real personality of her own. And apart from her tendency to self-destruct, as many narcissists do, hence the series, The Curse of Being a Narcissist, that was Unine's Achilles heel. The fact that she just relied on her beauty. Because the reality is, you can only look at someone or something for so long before you expect something more. In fact, there was this brilliant line in the book where a friend of Unine's tells her, "You're as handsome as ever, but people here don't go looking at each other forever." And mind you, Unine was young, so this is not necessarily a matter of age or ageism, but a matter of time. Basically, a pretty face can only get you so far. And when you live your whole life just cruising along based on your outer shell, you can fall into a trap of thinking it's always going to work. And then you're never going to think about investing some skill points, in gamer lingo, into other more enduring qualities, such as your intelligence, your charm, your charisma, your talents, your business acumen. All things that don't necessarily have an expiry date, as long as your mind is running well. Now, that's not to say that some people don't get really lucky and score the jackpot by using their looks. Meghan Markle's actually one of them. She used her appearance to marry into royalty, and presumably she would have been set for life. But recall what I've said throughout this series. Some people, particularly overly ambitious narcissists who are never satisfied, don't know when to stop. They don't know their own limitations, and they certainly don't know when they've got a good thing going. And so they push the envelope further and further, hoping to reach the delusional heights that are foreign even to them. Because make no mistake, a lot of the time, these people don't even know what they want. Unine Sprog in the book had no idea what she wanted. All she knew was that she wanted more, that she deserved more, and that all she had to do was what worked for her for so long. Rely on her outer shell, on her pretty face. Which, we're going to find out, can be a huge mistake. Remember the vicious and relentless pile-on after Catherine released the Mother's Day photo with her children, which she was under no obligation to release, mind you, especially during such a trying time in her life. But she did it anyway, and then the whole Photoshop scandal happened. Remember when the poor woman felt compelled to release a personal apology signed off by her? What sort of dystopian world do we live where a sick woman recovering from cancer has to apologize to strangers in the public for doing what all of us do at some point in our lives just to get the mob off her back? If you're wondering where I'm going with this, we're getting to it right now. Remember when Girl's Girl, Meghan Markle, feminist champion, UN advocate for women's rights, chimed in the midst of all this and dropped this line. This isn't a mistake that Meghan would ever make. She has a keen eye and a freakish attention to detail. A freakish attention to detail. Okay. Let's examine. Full disclosure, back in 2021, when we first started the Plutonium show and talking about the royal family and Meghan Markle in particular, I thoroughly believed that Meghan was sharp, intelligent, calculating, more than just a pretty face. Their evil Oprah interview seemed like it was a plan that had the exact effect she hoped it would. They scored numerous multi-million-dollar deals within a year of Megxit. It looked like she knew what she was doing. But as time progressed and the endless blunders kept piling up, I started to see through that facade of the shrewd and intelligent woman that she wanted us to see, and instead saw Meghan for what she really is, a bauble, a shiny object, attractive on the outside, especially, pre-weight loss, but absolutely empty on the inside, exactly as South Park portrayed her. And one of the earlier instances of my coming to this conclusion was back in 2022, when her seemingly never to be released podcast was announced by Spotify for the summer. Now, in the lead up to that podcast, we also learned that she was attempting to trademark the word archetypes in her general field of entertainment. Now, I don't want to rehash too much of the past. We all know what became of that trademark application. Yes, it failed. It was rejected, much like the podcast itself failed and was circling down the drain, taking the whole Spotify $20 million deal down with it. But this was such a fool's errand, such an obvious fail, and a move that displayed such a lack of business acumen, of preparation, and basic common sense. Any competent small business owner will tell you that one of the first things that you do when you're trying to launch a new business or a new product line and have a name attached to it is to get your legal ducks in a row. You investigate these things, you check the register, you make sure the name's not already taken, especially in your field, because that's where trademark applications can be quite tricky. If you're operating in the same field, then a competitor who is already registered or using a very similar name has a very strong chance of shutting you down and saying, we are competitors and our customers are going to get confused, which is exactly what's happening to Meghan today. We all know she's already been struggling with her American Racism Orchestra trademark application for various reasons. First of all, you can't trademark a geographic location. Second of all, her logo was really weird and unclear. If you can even call it a logo, it looks like squiggles to me. And she also had issues with incredibly vague product descriptions. You would think this woman didn't have an entire team behind her. I mean, if she's incompetent because she's just a pretty face, where's her team? Don't answer that. We discussed this in this series. I think the first part of the series, she doesn't listen. She knows best in one ear and out the other. But now, as Richard Eden put it last week, Meghan Markle appears to be in a real jam over American Racism Orchestra's name. I'm certain that a lot of you have already heard by now that a premium US-based food and gift retailer called Harry and David, the irony of Harry being in the name, with annual sales of 1.7 billion pounds, has filed a letter of protest on Halloween against American, I have to say the name properly now because they have the similarities in the name, against American Riviera Orchard, claiming that the name is far too similar to its Royal Riviera product line. Now, I checked out the product line. They basically sell pear gift baskets. And according to the New York Post, which has seen the letter of protest, the company has already registered Royal Riviera as a trademark of these pear baskets, or pair gift baskets. And so they claim, as I just told you earlier, that there is a likelihood of confusion for this trademark if Meghan attempts to sell her jams and her dog biscuits and her gift baskets under American Riviera Orchard. I'm guessing it has a lot to do with the fact that she's married into royalty, hence the term royal, even though she's not really using it. The case has been escalated to Marco Wright, who is the trademark office's examining attorney. So it's not over yet. We're going to see what they come back with and we can proceed from there. But, you know, once you say, oh, she's new, she doesn't know what she's doing, everyone makes mistakes, but multiple times in a row at this point? And the exact same mistake that happened with archetypes and the trademark application 2 years ago? Does this woman not learn? Don't answer that. She doesn't, because of the curse of the narcissist. But this isn't a one-off. This is a pattern of incompetence. And she still expects us to believe that she has such a keen eye, such a freakish attention to detail. In my opinion, based on what I've observed, all of Meghan Markle's post-Megxit failures, of which there have been plenty, as we just said, are down to one thing: a lack of substance. She is an empty shell that has relied on nothing but her appearance to move up in the world and has clearly never bothered investing into any other aspect of herself. I mean, look at her now. Basic things like being a decent human being or forming sensible sentences that don't sound like word salad gibberish, being a businesswoman. These are all things that elude her. They're like a foreign language to her. And for someone who struggled to memorize the British national anthem, a foreign language is no bueno. She was also never intelligent enough to realize that while you may get away with a certain strategy for a limited period of time, you know, clearly her reliance on her appearance worked in her teens and her 20s and her 30s, but they're not working anymore. And the crazy thing is, it would have worked had she just known when to stop. She used her appearance to marry, and as I mentioned earlier, she could have just stopped there. Then her strategy would have been a success. But no, she just had to keep going, didn't she? Blinded by her delusions of grandeur, by her narcissism. Even stunning A-listers like Rihanna, Jessica Alba, Reese Witherspoon, they all parlayed their star power to start billion-dollar empires because they knew that you can only bank on your looks for a very limited period of time. And while these people have teams of the most successful people in the industry around them, they had enough brains to A, listen to the experts, which Meghan is incapable of doing, and B, you can't really run a business if you don't have the brains for it, because people will take advantage of you. Your tax accountants, you know, your lawyers, your business managers, people can sniff out weakness. And so I can almost guarantee you that each and every one of these privileged women who were far more successful than Meghan could ever dream, still invested time to learn. That's why their businesses are successful. And if you don't understand that concept early on, you're in for a very rude awakening. And I do wonder if she's starting to realize that. If she has enough insight to sit down with herself and be honest with herself, honest about her shortcomings, about where she went wrong, about why everything is imploding around her. I mean, this is all rhetorical because we know that she is afflicted with the curse of being a narcissist. She cannot even acknowledge the concept of having shortcomings. Because with this curse, you believe you are perfect. Shortcomings and perfection, they're not exactly capable of coexisting. To summarize, if you're lazy, like Meghan is, and if you're entitled, and if you believe in your own perfection and your own hype, and if you think that your looks are more than enough, then things are probably not going to end up working too well for you. especially if you're ambitious. And these types tend to be very ambitious, to say the least. So that's it for this video. This is the final part, I think, of The Curse of Being a Narcissist. It was never even meant to be a series, believe it or not. It was meant to be a one-off, and then I just kept getting ideas. And Megan just kept giving me content. I mean, what am I gonna say? So, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. I have been reading your comments, of course. A lot of you have said that your eyes have been opened to these things. This is why we do things like this, just to help as much as I can, because I know my limitations. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.